Hey friends, welcome to What's Up on the EDH Rec Twitch stream. This is a weekly AMA/interview style show where we bring on well-known Magic the Gathering community members and ask them lots of questions until their brains melt. I am your host, Andy Zupke, and joining me tonight as my guest is the incredible Hobbes Q. Say hello,
Hey.
Hobbes.
Hey everybody, good to be here. I'm really excited for this. This show is a great idea. I'm really glad to see it getting kicked off. So,
Absolutely, we're happy to have you. All right, we're going to kick things off right away. The first question right off the bat, the big burning question that's on everybody's mind, Hobbes. How the hell are you? How are you doing? You good?
wow, yeah. I mean, this feels like one of those traps where am I supposed to just say good? Am I supposed to just give the polite, almost, if somebody asks how you're doing, you just say, fair
This
to
is going to be a very
middling.
awkward interview if all you give me is one-word answers like good.
Fair to middling. Midwest, that could obviously mean that my entire house was on fire.
Yeah.
To I stubbed my toe, but I mean, I'm fair to midland. Yeah.
All right.
It's a tough week. I'm just gonna preface it by saying,
that it is.
I joke about
For
it being
reasons.
only Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually go to work today because my kid's school got canceled because of this.
Cold.
So people don't know. Snow does not get canceled in Minnesota, or at least the Minneapolis Twin Cities, really for snow. We don't cancel for that. However, -20 with wind chills getting to near -40, that will cancel school.
Yep.
So we had my daughter's kindergarten got canceled last minute on Monday night, which is fine because Monday was not a great day and I'm still struggling a little bit and wasn't necessarily ready to go back to work. So got to play some Lego today, hang out with my kid. So for that perspective, it wasn't a bad day.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
good. Silver linings there. Hey, for anyone who doesn't know you, why don't you give us a little info about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so if people don't know, my name is Hobbes. I go by Hobbes Q on the internet everywhere since 1998 when I created it as an AOL instant messenger name sitting in my dorm room as a freshman in college. I am a Magic the Gathering player. I'm a commander player who basically started into areas like Twitter and stuff just as kind of a random commentator circa 2010, 2011. And since then, I've done a lot of content related to, Commander and to a podcast called the Goblin Lore podcast, which is now we are well into. We will be at 7 years in June. We will be hitting our 7-year anniversary. So we've been doing this kind of mix of real world meets the lore or the other elements of Magic besides just gameplay. We started about 7 years ago. Like I said, we've been doing it since. And with that, I've kind of developed a reputation as a mental health advocate within the Magic space, which makes sense because my big boy job is that I am a psychologist by trade. And so it's been a great way for me to be able to basically marry my two loves of Magic the Gathering and mental health and kind of be in an advocacy space within this community going on, like I said, for quite a while yet. And I've even been interviewed by the illustrious Andy. This is not the first time.
No, when Dana was booking you, I told him, I literally wrote his biography, so we're well acquainted. So no introductions needed.
Yeah, I should tell you, I was just thinking about this the other day. My parents commented on your great style and your great writing when I sent it to my family. And my parents said that they learned stuff about me that they didn't know.
Wow.
Yeah. Even
it's funny.
Not Magic stuff either. Like my personal life stuff that I apparently had never really talked about with them. So
right.
Yeah.
I was actually rereading that I think yesterday to prepare for this, make sure I had good questions for you. And I was reading through and I was like, oh, I've gotten better as a writer. I was
Since when you
not a
since you
fan of my writing.
wow.
It's that's about 3 years ago now. I think I've gotten
Yeah.
better. I hope.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that you hadn't. I thought you did a great job then.
Oh,
So,
well, thank you. I
oh,
appreciate
it's
that.
somebody just dropped it into chat already. The actual
Thank
article.
you,
Go read it.
Jay
It is a great
Sherwood.
article. Yeah.
Appreciate that, and I had a great time writing that.
Yeah.
So, people in chat, this is an AMA, so we're going to be asking Hobbes lots of hopefully embarrassing and painful questions. We're going to start off with a few of my own questions, so go ahead and start racking those questions up so that I got something to come back to once we're done with these gems I've got loaded up for this guy here. I want to start off by talking about the podcast, the Goblin Lore podcast. Now, you said you've been doing this for almost 7 years now, right?
It will be 7 years. June will be 7 years. I just posted. It'll be coming out Thursday. We have 4 preview cards from Aether Drift.
Holy
the podcast
smokes!
has
I didn't get a
free
single
preview
one.
cards.
How did you get 4? I didn't get one.
I don't know. I think it's a mistake. Like I think they forget to take us off like a mailing list. I think.
Yeah.
It's like the only one I've ever signed up for that was probably helpful. No, I have no clue. But I just posted. It'll come out on Thursday after we spoil them or preview them on Blue Sky.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be episode 245.
Yeah, almost 250 episodes. You got anything planned for the big 250? Any big celebration?
You know, we should probably start thinking about that because we don't really map out very well. We are very goblin-esque. A little insight into the podcast is that we kind of operate like goblins. So our planning, there have been times that we have done very well at planning out episodes and planning out a slate of guests and sketched out what the next couple of months will be like. We're still usually running. We interview people, and they're always like, "Oh, so when's this episode going to be out?" I'm like, "Well, it's Monday tonight.
Question.
It'll be out on Wednesday." Like, we do not typically operate with a backlog. We just the 3 hosts are a little bit. We're older. We're people that just really enjoy sitting down and having a conversation with each other, which makes it really easy to record episodes. It also just means that we're kind of comfortable with throwing things together on the fly, and I think that's okay. I mean, we have a general outline of the types of guests that we like to have on. So like we're actually working on having Kay Arsenal Rivera back again to talk about the story. We love getting to sit down and talk about with the writers, so that's kind of been a common theme among it. We always have kind of people that we want to work with, and we've been very fortunate that for the most part, when we did things like reach out to people, we've had very good success with doing that. So we don't believe in fixing things that ain't broke.
Awesome. So, in 7 years and almost 250 episodes, who has been your favorite guest on your podcast?
Oh, wow. That is one of the things that I don't like to do is to like my brain like hits this like thing where I'm like,
I warned you this was going to make you uncomfortable.
What about well, do you mean the favorite type of this guest, or but like I like absolute? It's like the Sith thing, right? Even though the statement only a Sith deals in absolutes is an absolute, it is true that I don't like things that are black and white and like. So I'm gonna do what I normally do. I was told to ask an uncomfortable question. Donnie and Jen, thank you for being here tonight. Yes. So I will do what I normally do on the Goblin Lore. We often start each episode with a question for the host to answer, and we always find ways to cheat. So my favorite, I think, artist to ever have on the show actually is Anthony Waters. So Ant Waters, if people don't know, he's a older Magic the Gathering artist. His art recently was reused. He had done some of the Vanguard art, and his Karn was used in the Mystery Booster.
Oh, nice.
So that was his Karn from the Vanguard set. And so he did a lot. He did the really cool Graven Cairns, like bloody river vampire looking thing. And he came on. I had reached out to him to buy artist proofs, and got talking, which is what happens a lot with this community, and mentioned what we do in terms of the podcast and mental health. And he just said, I think there's a lot of room to talk about this within the art community, because it's a topic that there is stigmatized, that people don't really necessarily feel comfortable talking about or really want to get into. I'd love to come on your show. And the reason I say that it was my favorite is about midway through the recording, we had been talking a lot about his art style, his art training. And with that, we were getting ready to transition into this discussion on mental health. And, I think our show has hit on very heavy topics. We've hit on suicide with Chase. So that's another episode. That was the first time we had them on the show. They came on and we talked about suicidal ideation. See, this is like that cheat. I could say Chase, but I don't have to say that they're a guest, because Chase isn't a guest. They are basically another host. They've been on, 10 plus episodes. That's like host status. Same with Kiln Fiend Potter. So see, I'm already getting to cheat, because we just consider these people like co-hosts already, co-hosts in waiting. But with Ant, we were transitioning into the question, and without even kind of letting Alex and I know, we'd had, which I think shows how comfortable he felt. He moved into a discussion about actually his own father's suicide. And his father was a veteran. He knew I worked for the VA as a psychologist. So, there was kind of this connection. But he brought us into this really deep discussion about suicide and being the survivor of somebody who had completed suicide, and being the child of somebody who had completed suicide. And with that as well, talking about the effects and the what that did to his art, and actually also how he worked through that with his art. And I think that is somebody that I always come back to as being one of the probably best guests we've ever had. So from an art perspective, it's like cheating. If we're talking just straight talking about the art, it's like Titus Lunter, because his overview on art and world building was fantastic. So it's like for categories, I tend to have these people that pop up. The one other one is Spice. So Spice 8 Rec, easiest 3-hour recording call with England I've ever had. And Spice came on. Spice gave us its time, said, let's do this. We had been planning it for a very long time. We got in, and it literally was going so well that we just kept asking Spice, hey, do you got a little more time? Knowing that we could stretch this out into, this is back in the day, we stretched this out into 3-4 episodes. And it had such a good presence of mind and oversight, or just overview on magic lore and real political and socio-political, and just all these things that I think we find to be very important, and why we do the cast. It's doing in long form video that is just amazing. And like I said, it was just one of the easiest times talking to somebody. Like I said, considered an interview. It didn't feel like an interview. It felt like a conversation.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine those are probably the best podcasts to have, the ones that don't feel forced.
So
unlike
what's your
my work
favorite?
on this show, which is
what's your favorite episode?
So amateurish, right?
Yeah. What's your favorite guest that's ever been on Goblin Lore podcast?
Because I listened to them all, of course. One of the ones you said was also my favorite.
One of the ones without a guest, just with the host as they are. Yeah.
And whichever one you were on, that one was best. That was my favorite. So what would you say to somebody who was thinking about starting a podcast now?
Now.
2025.
2025. I think the biggest thing is, there's a few things. For me, if I really was recommending people, I can only speak of this from the perspective of people who came at it. And obviously there were slips and just a lot of stuff getting up and running as a podcast, that our first year or two was kind of rough, including we lost a host because they left Magic, and they were actually the one that had pitched the show and kind of was the one who really got us going. And by year 2, they were gone. So, and part of that Also, there could have been probably communication that was done differently. So I think there's a few things. So number one, and this is for us in particular and why I think it works, it's not our job. I think that I really, if people want to do it for a living, I don't have great advice. I wouldn't know where to start for that. It works because in some ways we don't have to. So if we have to take weeks off, we don't feel that strain the same way. Not that we don't want to be consistent, but we have built up, just good relationships that we can have that and be an honest cast about, like, we're taking a week off for these reasons. These are the things. We're very upfront about it. We're three people that are doing this because it's something that we're passionate about. And so with that, we don't have to focus on that as much. But what comes with that then is that you're approaching it with intentionality. I really think before you ever sit down. So these are, since I didn't get these in during my favorite guest to date, let's go with the fact that if you want to check out some episodes with Daquan Watson, Power Dragon, he gives away fantastic free information about the importance of if you're going to do this, what should you do? And like number one is you need to sit down and have a plan about why people should listen to your show. You need to be doing something that is different than what other people are doing. There are so many podcasts out there. So you really, and we're a niche community for, like, let's say Magic. I mean, it's smaller community, right? And then there's like the wide world of podcasts, Magic podcasts, and then you need to stand out. So you need to be doing something that either other people aren't doing, or you need to be able to find your role or what you're contributing to the community. And I think to do that, you need to have like a purpose or some intentionality to what you're doing. If you're going to have multiple hosts, have defined roles in some ways of what people are going to be doing, so that that just helps with communication, I think, among hosts later on. Like, is there somebody that is going to be the producer or is editing that we know is going to be, so it doesn't feel like things are just getting put on people or that there's expectations for them, but it was something that was discussed, and there really was that conversation up front about what do we expect from each other and what roles do we have. So, like, for instance, I'm the most probably outgoing of our podcasts, like, host. Taya is online. Alex is not even on social media anymore. So I have, from day one, at least once our original host Joe left the cast, been like the face in terms of putting out the tweets and doing events and really having Goblin Lore be a presence at, say, charity events. And that's a lot of that's been really, I've been more of that. That's something that we came to, but there was some awkwardness with that up front. And I think that when we hadn't communicated it well, it can be uncomfortable. And I think that being willing to have those conversations before they get to a spot where they're going to cause friction, I think, is really important. Okay. So it's communication, kind of a purpose, having intentionality in what you're doing, and discover what it is the role is. And somebody kind of said, so I think Morgan P. Sanchez in chat said, is there a type of Magic podcast that you'd like to see but haven't found yet? So I have very limited time when it comes to my consumption of Magic content, which is the hard part. So the biggest thing is actually a sports style podcast where you have like talking heads that are almost like I hate this man so much. Like Skip Bayless, though, like, where he's like people that are gonna be at odds, but like in a funny way, not like a lot of the sports ones are, but people that are willing to play that up and really do like a sports radio style Magic the Gathering podcast is something that I would 100% love to see. I don't know what it would look like. It would need to be like just people going back and forth in a way that pulled segments from different radio shows, but that is kind of what I would love to see.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan, for the excellent question.
Yeah.
So next, I want to ask you about an idea that I've thought about a lot. Is the idea of success from the viewpoint of like a content creator, and how you view success and how it's objective. What one person sees as success, the other person sees as failing. I know from my dabblings in content creation, I've always seen myself as, well, I'm not succeeding because there's this person who's doing better than me. And if I were ever to get there to that level, I would just start looking at the next higher
Yeah,
up
yeah,
and think, well, I'm not succeeding because
right.
that person's.
Ahead of
So
me.
I want to ask you, as a content creator, what does success look like to you, and do you think you've achieved it?
Two-part question. So yes and yes. There is a phrase that's often attributed to Theodore Roosevelt. I actually love this quote. Whether or not attributions, I never know. But comparison is the thief of joy. So when we're getting into that point where we're comparing ourselves against other established benchmarks, we're starting to pull away any joy that we get from the game. And I 100% had that at times during my quote-unquote content creation career. And that could have even been something like, well, this person's interviewed this guest and this guest and this guest. We haven't done that. Well, so now we get one of those guests. Well, but then who's next? Now we have to top what we already did. So it's like you're even then comparing yourself to yourself, and that it's like that idea that like each thing has to be somehow better than the thing you did before,
Right.
or it doesn't feel worth doing. And those are the things that make it, I think, really difficult, because you are ending up with just this idea that you're not getting to enjoy what you do anymore. You're doing it for metrics, or you're doing it for numbers. And so that was something that has been very hard for me to learn. So to me, success is the connections I've made. So it's hard, right? Like I 100% still look at metrics. I do look at our numbers. I do look at if we're downloaded. I like to see at least if there's topics that are either making a difference or changing, or our numbers staying the same, kind of those sorts of things. And I will tell you that over the last couple of years, our numbers are down. And I mean, I've talked to people across the board, other podcast people, that their downloads are down. That's just across the board. And I think that is because there's so many and people have so much limited time. And so with that, I don't consider that success. Opportunities that I've had to do. So it's like I said, a lot of it's like qualitative data, I guess. I mean, I can point to specific things, but I can't really quantify it in a way that this is my stats, science brain coming in, right? Like if I could plot the amount of downloads and figure these things out. But, we've gotten to do multiple panels at Magic Cons on mental health. I have seen more discussions of mental health happen in the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm not saying that, that's like, I'm not like that's me. However, I think that I am vocally a loud person about mental health, and somebody that people have told, right? Like, like you made me feel comfortable talking about it. Like things like that make me look around and say, okay, the community looks like it's engaging with our content. I'm getting feedback when I get it that is positive about the work that we're doing. And I find that to be successful, right? Like to me, that would be success. Being able to help coordinate charity events and know that people will show up to them, and maybe part of that is just because of the work I've put in or the work I've done makes me happy to have people like show up, and then that means we have a more successful event. And the charity piece is the one that I'm bringing that up a couple times, or I've already mentioned it, because that is outside of the podcast. That's kind of been my main thing that I've really focused on the last couple of years is, how do we help? How do we tangibly help like people?
And from what I've seen, you've definitely been hugely successful in helping out with a lot of different charities and a lot of different drives and charity streams and all that stuff. So kudos to you. I think you're a huge success as a content creator. I look up to you.
Thanks.
So
well, thanks. I will say, like I had a moment. I've had a couple of them that I can think back on. One was the first time I had somebody nervous to meet me at a MagicCon. Like I had it was a Command Fest. And it was somebody that it came up to me, wanted me to sign a card, which I at this point I hadn't really signed cards or anything like that. It is something I do have done on occasion. I'm not still, but somebody was nervous to talk to me, and that made me be like, wow, like there must have been something that impacted this person if they're anxious or nervous to talk and wanting to thank me for the work, or yeah, one of the members of the Birds of Paradise in Vegas this year, and in the final lobby con, just said some words that literally started making me cry, because it was just the affirmations, and I'm somebody that definitely benefits from receiving those.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I don't think people get nervous about talking to me unless they're nervous that they will have to talk to me and they have to try and figure out a way to not.
Oh my gosh, this is like just straight up like, am I gonna have to like stop this and be like, okay, Andy, you're not being very nice to my friend right now.
Yes. All right. All right. I've got one more question for you, and then we're going to move to the chat questions. Chat, make sure to throw your questions in there. We will get to them. I promise you. Hobbes, here's another tough one for you. I hope you're ready. What is your proudest achievement in, let's say, content, but also, let's say, in your personal life as well?
Oh yeah, like we'll say content and then just expand it to your personal life, where I have like a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, like I like work at a job that I actually
pick your favorite kid, Hobbes. Which one's your favorite?
Right now. Like, do you want to pick which one? Like, which one you feel is really an accomplishment?
Yeah.
Or if you go read the excellent article by Andy, Portrait of an EDH Mind. I talk about, getting my PhD after basically being told by one of the training directors that I would never get a PhD from their program.
They were.
It's really
wrong.
hard. Yeah, that's right.
Fuck that person.
I really still want to part of me. Yeah, it's like, and I know full well they'd just be like, it almost would feel like that. For you, that was the most important day of your life. For me, it was a Tuesday. I just feel like I couldn't take that even at this point in my life, where I'm a fairly confident person. From a content standpoint,
Is it right now? Is this it?
That's what's making it uncomfortable. It's like, I don't know how to say that without feeling like I'm pandering, but it's this moment. It's always the moment that's happening right now.
You made it, buddy. You're here.
It's this moment in the present. I can't live in the past.
Yeah.
So it's whatever moment is happening right now for me, Andy. I will be willing to commit. The Sheldon event, wow. Now going on a year and a half ago, because we had so much that happened this year that we weren't able to do it. It is coming. It will be in the fall this year, which was when we had the first one, and that one came on the heels of Sheldon's actual passing. That pulling that event together alongside Logan and Beth, Queen of Cardboard, and Seraph Six, it is by far just being able to coordinate an event to honor somebody whose messages meant so much to a lot of us, and I think inform the pathway that I have been on. Being one of those people who felt comfortable enough to consider the person a friend that I had definitely outside of Magic the Gathering relationship with, and to use that to reaffirm what I want to do. I mean, in fact, so our original plan was, when the event had to get pushed from this past fall, was going to be coming up in March, and we recently sat down and decided, you know what, we're going to just wait, and we're going to instead push through. And so people, if you're in chat right now, you'll get to, I mean, we've been tweeting or posting about it. I gotta get my language still all correct, because I don't want to give that. And we are doing a Trans Lifeline event in March instead, and it was kind of even that interesting piece of kind of like, this is, Sheldon would have told us to do this, right? Like, he would have been like, why would, like, it is that idea that we need to help the people that need the help in this right now, and we want to still honor and celebrate Sheldon, because it wasn't just about like raising funds, it was also about like a celebration of life, and we want that to be an ongoing thing. And we will do it this fall, when it'll be the second plan to be annual, even though we missed a year. But I think that that is probably one of the biggest, because it was just hard on a like personal level as well as than just kind of the actual like content level or accomplishment level.
Okay, very cool. Glad to hear it. All right, chat.
I see chat stuff. So first off, Donnie, what's my win-loss ratio? He is referring to Magic the Gathering Online, where it sits at around a cool 40%, I have been told. I have an ongoing feud, if people do not know, with Magic the Gathering Online. I don't even think it's a feud with a social media manager. It is flat out a feud with the entity and program of Magic the Gathering Online. That AI, for all I know, I don't know what it is. It's a program that's somehow out there and put out a hashtag called Get Good Hobbes, and I now have a mug with that on it here. And yeah, they did one day. They gave me a joke about like, we'll look up your win-loss record, and they actually did it, and we discovered it was around 40%. Now, I have also been playing Magic the Gathering Online since roughly 2003.
2003, wow.
Yeah, 2003, maybe 2004 when I first got an account, but yeah.
Wow, what did it look like back then?
Back then, there was these tables that popped up, and you literally had to like click on a seat in a table, and it was a giant room, and all you could see were tables. And you had to figure out where, like, what type of style of game you wanted to play, and then you had to like click to get into a seat. So like you could try to be joining, like, and you would try to play with friends, and you couldn't like create necessarily a table, so you'd be like all trying to click on chairs. Yeah. Yeah, that is it was wild. So that is your answer, Donnie.
Donnie. That is how we say his name around here, with as much contempt,
vitriol,
and spite. Yeah. Vitriol is good too, as you can spit out as you say Donnie.
Always the threat.
Let's see. Morgan asks, favorite goblin lore-wise?
I'm gonna give you two.
Are you just a constant cheater here?
Well,
who is your
Hobbes? Here's the thing.
Yeah.
This is how you get away with sort of stuff like this. I'm gonna do the goblin who could not be killed, Squee. Squee has always absolutely been one of my favorite goblins. For years and years and years, I complained about the fact that we made multiple returns to Dominaria. Squee had cards. He had, he gets replaced on the Weatherlight. He was a major player on the Weatherlight. We returned to Dominaria. You got this goblin that's literally older than any other goblin and cannot be killed. And he gets replaced by Slimefoot. We're getting the band back together. We're getting the Weatherlight back together. There's this crazy stuff going on Dominaria. Did anybody think, hey, maybe we should check in with the goblin that's like 1,000 years old? They did not. We got a card with no story. And so it's been my complaint for years. The last time, though, we did return to Dominaria, we got Dan Sheehan's side story that was specifically about Squee, where he chooses to give up his immortality. It is one of my favorite side stories in Magic history. I mean, full on admit to a bias, and it is so well written and gives this very nice discussion about what I kind of was saying. Like, he was somebody in the multiverse who was not a planeswalker. He did not have this other element to him, yet couldn't die. And what does that mean? And there's great ways that it's explored, whether it's Squee would just wake up in the morning and realize that it was like a 5-story drop to get down to where he needed to go. So he would just step out the window because he knew he was going to, that's a fantastic use of immortality, right? If I can't die, great. I'm going to just step off of this and just, I'll go through the whole rigmarole, stand back up and walk off. My second answer, and this is why it's not a cheat, is because he could have been a planeswalker. And that is Slowbat, who gave up a spark to bring back everybody that had died. So on Mirrodin the first time, he developed this unlikely friendship with Glissa and Bosch, these outcasts and Glissa, like the people are dying all around him, and Karn's like basically is like, you can become a planeswalker. Like he had a spark right there in front of him, and he's like, but I wouldn't have my friends. And literally is like, well, if I do this instead, like they'll all come back, and chose to do that. And so he then got unceremoniously just killed off screen when we returned to Mirrodin. They leave the underground, the Phyrexians invade, and he gets stampeded by a herd of other goblins. And then like is gone until now he's like fused to his body of his best friend, which is depressing as fuck. And we need to go fix this. Like Gavin Verhey did make Slowbad actually just fine as an unknown card that is basically like him and Bosch get unfused and unphyrexianized, and thank you for that, because the way we left the story is like him and Glissa are now on the pocket dimension of Mirrodin, and who knows?
To be continued.
Yeah.
Once we're done with Cowboys and racing and
Cowboys racing,
going to
personas.
Space.
There were no goblins
then we'll
there,
come
though.
back and see
there
what's
were.
going on with Slowbad.
They were the raccoons. The raccoons are definitely the goblins of Bloomborough.
Okay. Cool. What about a goblin from non-magic fiction you want in universes beyond? Can you think of anything?
I mean, right, like the unfair easy answer is to say I want David Bowie as the Goblin King from Labyrinth. Right, like that is 100%. But I mean, I actually think that, so if we're talking non-magic fiction, we're gonna probably be getting one of the other ones, which is gonna be, I'm really interested to see, does Green Goblin get Goblin as a type?
I doubt it.
Well, this interview is over.
I don't know. I guess it depends on the timeline, because he was not really a goblin. He was a human, but he was,
Yeah, but there's versions of him that are definitely...
Yeah.
That's the question, right? Because he also goes between human and form. It's not like he's that weird, it's that really interesting thing. He like vacillates between it, especially we're talking like the version in like Into the Spider-Verse where it's the full-on like 2-story high goblin.
Sure.
Green Goblin, so ultimate Green Goblin. There we go. Ryan Sanio in chat.
All right. So I'd like to take a minute and kind of switch gears and get a little bit serious, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So stepping away from gaming, talk about what's going on in America right now. With the administration change we had yesterday, a lot of people are going through a rough time, particularly marginalized people, specifically trans people, and LGBTQ people in general. Do you have any advice for like coping mechanisms for people who are going through hard times dealing with what is going on in America right now?
Yeah. And I will say, you and I have talked a little bit about this, and I want to highlight that Tiffany, But Make It a Cat in chat, actually asked almost this exact question, which I think just shows you how poignant and it is right now. And there is a lot of heaviness and sadness. And so I'm going to come at this from two different directions. I actually wrote myself like a little bit of kind of jot down notes so that I don't forget fully. How am I personally coping right now? I am in the short term partaking in avoidance. And I say this in the short term because in the long term, avoidance is a strategy that is absolutely, unfortunately, effective, but very unhealthy. Avoidance is what leads to kind of us continuing with that idea that everything is scary and I need to be scared of it. And I start making my world smaller and smaller and smaller. So I avoid certain things because it makes me think about like these things I don't want to think about, that I'm really uncomfortable with, these intense emotions that I don't want to deal with right now. And so I avoid. But pretty soon, if I continue that, then I need to avoid the thing that made me think about it. So now I'm avoiding to. So it's like this is how people settle into, like very much seclusion, isolation. For me, and that is something with my own kind of history of depression and anxiety, is like shutdown mode where it really does not function as it's meant to anymore. So it maybe is keeping me from thinking about things. It's not helping me do much else. And so right now in the short term, yeah, we're right in the middle of all this. I am dealing with it with avoidance. Um, I am dealing with it with focusing on spending time with my kids and my wife and doing things with them. And that is not avoidance of the emotions and the things. It's making an intentional decision to do things that I think are beneficial. And that is one thing I also want to highlight when we talk about avoidance. There is such a weird word, avoidance, because there are things that we do want to avoid or we can avoid and that are going to be fine. But we need to be aware that we're doing it. We need to be going into it with this idea that we know what we're choosing to do. So just like with content creation, I mentioned intentionality. We need to be thinking about, if you're avoiding the news, you are intentionally choosing to disengage from it and focus on something else. There's an intentionality, and you are aware that it's what you're doing. Avoidance is really where we get into that bit where we start falling into patterns where we don't even realize that we're doing anything or that we're avoiding. We're just naturally started doing it, and that becomes our new normal. I'm intentionally looking at how I am approaching social media and even news media, learning from stuff that I did the last time that we faced this administration, where information was coming at such an overload. So yesterday I saw you all at the end of the day, we had to record our preview episode. So I focused on that, and I did not really do much else looking at it. We had the whole day off as a family actually yesterday, with MLB and MLK Day, which the just absolute confluence of allowing that this man to be inaugurated on MLK and move flags from half mast to that full mast because we got to celebrate our inauguration, and just everything just tromping on things. I spent time with my family, and we had kids had doctor's appointments. We went out and did lunch together as a family, and then I recorded the cast. And then once I got done, I allowed myself to kind of engage with the news, and I could tell that it already felt like 2016, well 17 really again, where that initial period is so chaotic, where it's like throwing all the shit against the wall. That's like these executive orders and undoing previous executive orders, and most of it's not going to stick. Most of it is not going to just be there. It will not do what he wants it to do, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it is meant to draw an emotional reaction, and I don't have the resiliency to be able to engage with that the same way that I did even 4 years ago, where I felt like I couldn't turn away because I had to be informed and know what was going on, and like yet I wasn't getting new information. It was what started this whole 24-hour cycle of like the news where every day something else bad was happening. And so I have to then be focusing on with like trying to get into sorry, I'm just seeing what's going on.
I get
it. Yeah. I have to be focusing on things that I will be getting able to do. Where can I make the changes? Where can I be effective? Where can I be helpful? What do I have the resources to do? What will I be able to do? And that's what I want to start planning and working on. And that's where I'm at. Things that I am doing to personally cope. Shivam had a great thread on the fact that we still have to find joy in the things that we find joy in, and that is part of this. You know, it very much has that perspective that I think is to take things with the wider view and realize that there have been times like these, there are times like these that will happen again. There are things that we need to do in the short term to protect ours and those around us, and to not shame people for enjoying things and for loving things and for looking for that where they can, because you're going to be able to find all of the shit everywhere we go. Now, speaking from me as somebody who is not of a marginalized gender, not from a marginalized background in terms of my race, as a straight white male, I need to figure out what is the best use of my privilege at this point. What can I boost? What can I be putting forward? What can I do to help those people around me that maybe do not have that opportunity? And so with that, my coping mechanism in the short term, like I said, last couple of days, is I built some Lego. I worked on that. I looked for the things I could find joy in. A lot of people might not have that luxury of being able to completely separate from it right this second, and they need to be doing the things that they need to do for themselves. And so one of the things I brought up is I wrote down this word wellness. One thing we have to talk about is resiliency, and humans are very resilient. And the key things that you need to know is to know yourself. And this is something that I recommend everybody do. Like this is a time of year this is a time in history. This is a time in just where we're at right now, where it is great. It is an opportunity to do this. I think this is something that's helpful to just do on a regular basis, which is to look at your wellness and look what it looks like. Mm-hmm. You need to sit down and think to yourself, what are my triggers? Can I identify the things that actually are different than my normal everyday up and downs? Do I know that the news and looking on social media is something that is going to trigger me? Do I know that having this discussion with whoever is going to make things worse? Do I have that understanding of what my triggers are? Some triggers you may be able to see. Triggers are the things external to us. They're the thoughts, the feelings, they're the events that are around us. Have an idea of what those are for you. From there, it's what are my warning signs? What are my signs personally for me that I am not doing well? So for instance, I was diagnosed with depression at 18 years of age. I am a 45-year-old man. That has never gone away. It is always there. It is always part of my identity. It is always part of me. There still are big differences between feeling like I'm a little bit kind of on my baseline being a little bit low, and when I am actually in depression that really needs more intervention. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've had to do is to notice, okay, well, what is my general, like, you did one of my things that I always get shit for online. I am a self-deprecator, and unfortunately, that is also just a coping mechanism. It is also a sign that I'm being not kind to my brain. My brain, I laugh about this because I do therapy with people, and I'm always trying to come up with examples for things. And people will tell me like, wow, you came up with that really unhealthy thought. Just, wow, that was so good. You're so good at teaching and having these examples. And I'm like, yeah, that literally just went through my head because that's what
talking to a pro about. Here.
Right? Like, yeah, you don't even know how good I am at
negative thoughts here.
So I need to know the difference between that and the signs of like, now I'm actually like not returning people's calls that I actually care about. I'm not responding to messages. I'm like just wanting to sleep and call into sick to work. Like those are signs that I am doing much worse. So be aware of those for yourself and start coming up with a list of coping skills that do work for you. The things that have worked in the past, and whether it is playing a game, going for a walk, listening to music. You know, I'm a big scents person. I joke, but before getting out here, I had my cup of herbal tea, which is something I like at night because it has warmness on my palms, as well as smell, as well as taste. It's got everything. It's engaging my senses, and that's something that is important to me and helps me do. The last thing, and you know what, this is something that my wife and I learned about at a seminar we went called Project Happiness, but I actually think is a really good thing, is taking time, especially if you're in a relationship, you have kids, however it is, with friends, the people that are a part of your community. If you have people that you can do this with, it's even better. If not, do it by yourself. Each day, at the end of the day, go through 3 good things that happened during the day. 3 things that you're grateful for or that happened during the day. It could be literally that cup of coffee that was warm. It could be the fact that, like, you know, my daughter and I played together because her school day got canceled. and my kids wanted me to wrestle with them on the floor tonight. It could be, you know what, I actually got a decent night's sleep. But take the time to actually, we are really good, and it's not like trying to be Pollyanna and say focus on the positive and only think about the good. It's not what we're doing. Most of us already focus on the negative. We doom scroll. We're really good at doing that. We don't feed the other side of it and give that side some intentional weight that you force yourself to do. And that is an activity that I love just giving to people. So
very cool. I want to touch on something. We had a question a while back from Jay Sherwood that I wanted to revisit once we got into this segment. They asked, as someone who has worked in the VA, what is something you wish you could tell active duty people?
I wish that I could tell active duty people that things are very good in the VA historically. If we go back far enough, and I think we're still coming out of perceptions of the VA from 30 years ago, VA care is awesome. VA care is actually above community standards in a lot of ways, and you have dedicated teams that will know your case that you will not get in the community, especially if we're talking mental health care. I literally work next door to the person that is prescribing you medication, and I talk to them daily. You're not going to get that in the community. So the VA is meant there, and you have that, and it's an earned benefit, and fight for it. You deserve healthcare. It's the closest thing we have to socialized medicine in the US. Beyond that, one thing that I would tell active duty people is, this is the hard part, and I don't know if this is going to help or not, Jay Sherwood, but it's like, if you are struggling, like, you need to ask for help. And the hard part about that is, yes, it can cost you your career. Yes, it can cost you time in the service. And we already know that there's higher suicide rates and everything else that we have to come up against. So it is a fact of the matter that anything we can do to kind of get people to be able to ask for help. There has been destigmatizing in the military. It's still nowhere near where we would want it to be. We're still oftentimes, people who serve choose to serve for lots of reasons, and we also know that there are predatory behaviors to target recruitment from groups that are marginalized and groups that don't have an option. The other thing is, support your fellow service people that have 100% that are LGBTQ, that are minorities, because I've been serving trans veterans for a long time. I've been selling LGBTQ veterans for a long time, and they've always been serving. Don't let this shit, I don't know. Like, this is a hard one right here, Jay Sherwood, because as you're saying, like, I don't know what's about to happen. We are entering a period of uncertainty when it comes to both military and the VA that I haven't experienced in my career. And I've been a VA licensed psychologist for almost 10 years, and I've worked in the VA on and off since 2002 as an undergrad. This is different.
Hobbes, why don't you tell us about Better Days MTG, the hashtag? What do you frequently use on social media? What is that? What is it for?
Yeah, so not the Ugin propaganda question that Ryan tried to force me down. This pathway to have to state fact that Ugin is the worst brother in Magic, and that's with the fact that we have Urza and Mishra both out there. Yes, Better Days MTG. Better Days MTG is it came out of wanting to coalesce work that was being done across a couple of creators in particular in ways to make it where it was easier to find. So Ryan, Tron is Bad, if people don't know Ryan had been posting a lot of videos that I loved. I had never done video content. I approached him because I was like worried about stepping on his toes, but I was actually inspired by his video content of relatable person sitting down talking about an element or something that was important to him in his mental health. And I started talking to him about like, hey, I want to kind of build off of this because I want it to be louder, or want it to be like bigger. I want to get like almost like a groundswell, right? Like I want to destigmatize. That's always at the end of the day, destigmatizing mental health is my goal. And the best way to do that, talk about it. Be blunt and open about it. And so I started doing videos for a while, and I was posting, and Ryan kind of mentioned, like, it's hard to find where all this is. And so he proposed the hashtag "A Better Day is MTG." Like, we even got a logo. Like, I was like, we got stickers, man. Look at this. Look at these. Look, go get your tokens from Inkling. Like, look at that. Looney Tunes, for people who don't know, that's all folks in the style. Better Days MTG. The key is using it as a hashtag, because then I could find everything. So I could, back in the days of Twitter, I could click on the hashtag, and that way I could find it, locate it, and find tweets of anybody that was talking about mental health that had chosen to use that tag. I could repost them. I could boost them. I could respond to them. And I will say, with the move to Blue Sky, it's even better because those hashtags really allow you to set up feeds. There is a Better Days MTG feed that you can add if you want to create custom feeds. If you don't know how, I'm happy to tell you how to do it. Just ping me on Blue Sky. There are feeds that you can set up where they will be like at the top there. Like, I have my following, I have people I'm mutuals with it, but then I have Better Days MTG is literally a tab I can click on. I can click on it right now and see anybody who's posted about that. And with the move over to Blue Sky, we have seen more people posting, and it is just, it is a way to find these stories of hope. It's the way to find people that are struggling and maybe need a word from you, by people who are willing to put themselves out there and be a little bit more vulnerable. So that's basically what it is. That's at the end of the day, it is trying to get people to start a conversation.
Very cool. All right, we are almost out of time here, Hobbes. If you don't mind, I'd like to pivot to something a little more lighthearted, a little more fun before we go.
Thank the Lord.
What is the biggest Lego set you've ever built?
Okay, so the biggest Lego set that I have ever built is... I have to look up between two right now.
Yeah.
I have two bigger than this set aside unopened to build. But that is going to be... One is the Disney castle. Like the big Disney castle. Like, my daughter and I built the Frozen one. That thing is like 4 foot tall. We're building the Disney actual castle, and I think that's like 4,000 pieces. I bought it. I got a really good deal off of Facebook Marketplace, but we're waiting until my youngest daughter is old enough so that we can build it together. I'm just looking. Oh God. And if there's a Batman the Animated Series, the Batman the Animated Series one, and I'm dropping the link in the chat assuming it lets me, is a panorama that goes on, like, you can hang it on the wall. But it's the complete, it is all scenes from Batman the Animated Series. It is over 4,000 pieces.
Yeah.
I had to look between this and the I'm working on the treehouse. The treehouse. I don't, because this has a lot of really small pieces that are involved with it. But I have Rivendell. I sold an artist proof to get the Rivendell set. And I have Rivendell to build, and that one is 6,100 pieces.
Ooh, when are you starting that one?
Yeah. Will you come to visit? Like, we'll have a party, like a Lego party. I don't know. I've been debating starting it. People don't know. It's not just the building the Lego. It's where you then either store it or you have to like unbuild it.
Yeah.
And that one is one that I have to debate on where I'm going to actually either display it or what I'm going to do with it after I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that takes up a lot of space. Lego is something that, like, whenever we go to the mall, we go in and look around, and like I see all these cool things that are like, oh, that's awesome, and then I look at the price and I'm like, oh, I don't want it that bad. And it's pretty much all of them are the ones that I like, that are just too much money.
It is.
It's an expentive hobby, and I have enough of those.
Hobby. That was the joke with my wife. Was I picked up a third expensive hobby once. So I really started getting back into Lego really hard, and I'm like this with things, right? Like I hit the ground and I just go. And that was I got really into Lego last year building a it's a diorama of Yoda's hut that has the placard that says "Do or do not, there is no try," which is actually one of my like favorite quotes to even use within therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I built that and was like, "Holy shit, this is the most I've actually like physically and tactilely engaged with a hobby in forever." And I started buying sets. But I also like I buy a lot off marketplace. I've bought like used sets. Like I bought the Daily Bugle, which is a once again, but I bought it for like $150 off because it was already put together. And then I unbuilt it and then rebuilt it. And like that alone, it just I also only sorted it by color, so I didn't sort into bags, which is like the way that helps you now because it's like you open it up and the set's got you work on bag 1, you work on bag 2, which is great for a set you haven't built, but like I can make a set last a lot longer if I just have to hunt through 3,000 pieces and I only sort by like color or something. So and I see Mashodom's and telling you use the glue. That's like something you can use to like the Craggle. Get like Lego builders to like start cringing. Like it's really funny. I'm part of like like the adult friends of Lego group and stuff on Facebook, and they're always like, glue is like blasphemy.
All right, Hobbes. Well, it is getting past our bedtime, of course. Us old men here in the Midwest, it is late. So I want to say thank you so much for being on What's Up. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you. And before we go, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you online, how they can support you, and if you got any upcoming events that you want to plug or anything that you're going to, conventions or anything.
I am going nowhere for a long time. No, until winter it passes, I will not be going anywhere because I don't. I was saying this to Andy beforehand. I don't have the child care help with my wife, but my hope is to be there is going to be a SCG Con in Minneapolis in May. Historically, for any event in the Twin Cities area, somebody else asked this. I know we didn't get to it. About playing in the Twin Cities, about places. My house. I usually host, if people are in town, I usually host a cookout. And by this, I mean, we had probably close to 100 people at my house last time we had one of these. So my garage was literally built with being able to put tables in it. And there's actually a garage door on both sides so that you can like get into it from both sides so that we could play Magic. And so that's the next event that I will be at. People can find me at HobbesQ everywhere. Well, I'm getting rid of Twitter as soon as I'm able to delete it. The account will still be there, but it's going to be locked and just telling you to go to Blue Sky, which is where I'm at right now. That's the main place, the Goblin Lore Pod. We are also on Blue Sky. Better Days MTG, also on Blue Sky. We have accounts for each of these separate. And that's kind of where the places are to find me. Who's your guest next week?
Well, our guest next week for What's Up, let's see. Looks like we got a newcomer in the Magic community. His name is Matt Morgan. Well, I've never heard of him myself. I'm looking forward to getting to know Matt Morgan. So
that's Mathimus 55, I believe.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds like it might be familiar. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The name sounds familiar. I somehow realized that just now that when I moved over to Blue Sky, I didn't follow him any longer, which is awkward.
Yeah, he was telling me about that the other day. He's like, Hobbes doesn't follow me on Blue Sky. Is he mad at me? You should ask him.
That would depress me so much. If that was really sad. And now I won't be able to sleep tonight because I will be thinking about whether you were joking.
Well, good. I mean, that was the whole point of this, was to traumatize you in some way. And I'm glad we got there in the end because I was getting a little worried that I had missed the mark.
And I heard that Ryan Sanyo will be coming on.
No, Ryan Tron is bad. Ryan Nichols. He's coming next month.
Oh, that Ryan,
yeah.
That Ryan. I thought we were talking Ryan Sanyo, hipster Sanyo. I thought that's who we were talking. Who's also Ryan.
Yeah.
I have too many people with the same first names.
Ryan is a popular name.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, friends. This has been What's Up. This is a weekly AMA interview style show with people from the Magic community. I'm your host, Andy Zupke. You can find me on Blue Sky at Zupkeep. We'll be back next week, Tuesday at the same time. Again, we'll have Matt Morgan. I know who he is. I was just joking. He's from the EDH Recast.
It would have been better if you didn't.
If I didn't know him?
Yeah, you were just like, I don't know.
He's some guy I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad you made it to 3 episodes before getting yourself canceled.
That's fine. Matt doesn't watch this. We're okay. So again, we will be back next week, Tuesday, same time. So make sure to tune in. And we're going to raid. Let's send the love on over to Emma Skyward. Tell her we said hi. Have a great night, everybody. And take care.
I just received in the mail from Emma Skyward